We may have just taken an absolutely huge leap towards disclosure around aliens, UFOs and UAPs, as the head of Arrow, the brand new head of Arrow who was appointed recently, has just held a caucus for Congress people around UFOs and the topic. And it was completely behind closed doors, hush hush. We didn't really know much about what went on in there. Or do we? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about today. So, for anyone that doesn't know what a caucus is, it's a US term, basically. So, in some US states, a meeting which local members of a political party register their preference among candidates running for office of selected delegates to attend a convention, or a conference of members of a legislative body who belong to a particular party or faction. So, basically, they hold a form of legislative caucus to basically be briefed on what they know, and it's like a show of face to be like, hi, this is me, this is who I am, kind of thing. Now, we knew about this because Tim Burr, for anyone that doesn't know, Representative Tim Burr, he is the top dog, or one of the top dogs when it comes to learning about this kind of information. He is all about the disclosure. He is literally spearheading the way, alongside some other Congress people that we're going to be talking about in just a moment. But he put this tweet out a couple of days ago saying that Arrow will be briefing members of Congress in an SCIF today about the result of its latest UAP report. And he said, Arrow will be briefing members of the Congress in the SCIF today, latest Arrow report. I won't be able to give details since the SCIF briefings are classified, but my guess is that they won't say much we don't already know. Which is unsurprising because it's always the case. But there were a couple of News Nation articles, and if you don't follow News Nation, obviously you need to be, because they are really, really good. They're hot on the heels of these kind of topics. And yeah, this is what they had to say on the matter when they released 2 videos about it yesterday at the time of recording. Take a little gander at this.
From the government agency that monitors unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAPs. The acting director of Aero, Tim Phillips, and the Air Force Major General will brief members of the House UAP Caucus. And the briefing comes during growing concerns over a series of drone incursions in sensitive U.S. military airspace. Joining us now is opinion contributor for The Hill, Mark von Renen. His latest article titled The Shocking History of UFOs and Nuclear Weapons. Mark, great to have you. You know, your article, it highlights dozens of documented sightings of UAPs over military nuclear facilities. I'm curious, what were some of the most startling realizations you found out when doing this research?
Hey, good morning, Kelly. Thanks for having me. And I got to tell you, as I started looking into this, my jaw progressively hit the floor as I studied the history of interactions between UAP and nuclear weapons. And just to give you kind of a flavor of what I dug up, and a lot of this I owe to a gentleman named Robert Hastings, who has been tracking this for 50 years. So I encourage your viewers to pick up his book. It's called UFOs and Nukes. But at a very high level, there were series of 3 back-to-back incidents involving our most sensitive nuclear missile silos. So in 1965, over 100 Air Force personnel stationed at nuclear missile silos in Wyoming, Colorado, and Nebraska observed over almost 150 very, very bizarre objects hovering, moving rapidly over nuclear missile silos. This is all documented. This is not just hearsay. This is not just testimony. This is all documented in government records. The following year, 1966, there were documented incidents over nuclear missile silos in North Dakota that interfered with communications. And in 1967, there were documented incidents over nuclear missile silos in Montana, where 10 nuclear missiles actually went offline. And again, this is not just chatter. This is not just former missile officers at a bar having these conversations. These are in documents that we know went up to the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the highest levels of our government.
Now, this isn't the only instance of this. Obviously, there are countless instances of this. Back on the channel, I've made maybe 3 or 4 videos about this now, and some of the places where these UFO sightings have occurred. And like he said, this isn't just hearsay. This is actually documented by high-level officials in reports about these occurrences and how their nuclear weapons went offline after seeing a strange sighting up in the sky. Check it out.
And I want to make one more quick point on that. The government's UFO analysis office recently came out with a report and a historical review of the U.S. government's involvement with UFOs, and it made zero mention of these particular incidents. And it's pretty remarkable for them to come out and say, basically, nothing to see here, but we have this enormous body of evidence that suggests otherwise.
Yeah, I won't lie. That whole report was just dog shit. It literally was. It was just awful. It was horrendous. Like, everything in that report, bar a few little things, has been debunked. So, it's just one of those things. But yeah, it was awful.
Well, and I want to dig a little deeper into that because Arrow recently released its report regarding if the government has UAP retrieval and reverse engineering programs. And in the report, it found no evidence of any such programs. Do you agree with those findings based on your research?
That is the million-dollar question. And the bottom line is that there have been rumors of this for decades. But I want to make something very clear, and this is actually brand new. Just yesterday, Arrow, the government's UFO analysis office, released about 56 pages of documents that unambiguously show that Senator Harry Reid, the former Senate Majority Leader, adamantly believed that the U.S. government had retrieved anomalous and exotic craft because he was attempting to establish, over the course of, I believe, 4 or 5 years, attempting to establish a very secretive program, first at the Department of Defense and then at the Department of Homeland Security, which is what these new documents were about, that basically alleges and says contractors and certain government agencies have these exotic craft and they wanted to bring them in and analyze them. So what we have now is we have Senator Harry Reid, now Senator Chuck Schumer, the current Senate Majority Leader, has proposed previously legislation that basically says the same thing. And the direct quotes in this legislation pertain to non-human intelligence and what are called legacy programs. And they're defined in this legislation that did not pass, but it sounds like there are rumors that it will make another appearance and we might see that in the coming months.
Now, I laugh because I find it absolutely hilarious that there has been Arrow reports come out and all the rest of it, and then literally it's contradicted within the next Arrow report, which is just, it's so typical. It's so typical. But there was also this article that came out from News Nation once again, which talks about lawmakers that push for answers in classified UFO briefing. So this is a bit more about the briefing itself, about what's going to go down within this briefing, and how people are going to really, really push this new head of Arrow to try and be like, look, we know that there's something. You can't kid us. What is it? Take a little listen to this.
Well, another meeting taking place on Capitol Hill today, but this one in secret, as members of the House Caucus on Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, commonly known as UFOs, are meeting with Defense Department officials in charge of investigating those flying objects. Today's classified briefing is the latest push to get answers about the unexplained. Correspondent Joe Khalil live for us there at the Capitol. Joe, what do we know about today's meeting?
Well, it's going to happen in about less than an hour's time. In one of the rooms close behind us now, there is going to be this classified briefing with just a few members of the House Republican and Democratic UAP Caucus. This is a bipartisan group. The briefing is going to be done by members of Arrow, Tim Phillips and Major General David Abba. These are two people from Arrow, which is the wing of the Pentagon that investigates and looks into UAP or UFO reports. What is going to be talked about in that room is classified, so we likely are not going to get details or a specific readout of what's discussed. What we know generally is that the topic is UFOs or UAPs and the government's ongoing probe into what is in our airspace. Now, this is the third such classified briefing in the last couple of months that this sort of newly formed UAP caucus has been able to put together. One was done by the Department of Defense, the other done by the intelligence community. This one done by Arrow, which again, I think in itself is significant. Just last month, Arrow put out what they said was an expansive report detailing sort of the government's history with their investigations into the UAP phenomenon. There were some members of Congress who were going to be in this room today who, when the report came out last month, expressed some skepticism about what was in it and the general findings that Arrow put forward. So it'll be interesting, the back and forth in that room, which again, we are not going to be privy to because it is classified. Just moments ago, I talked to Congressman Tim Burr, who's going to be one of the members of Congress in that room. Here's what he told me today about his expectations.
Now, Tim Burchett is a legend. Like, he's up there alongside Jeremy Corbell and people like that. Like, you know, and he's just awesome. He's just awesome. Like, he pushes and he asks the questions that are uncomfortable to ask and really probes for answers.
My expectations are very, very low. We're just like a rat chasing our tail. We're told time and time again, this is the one that's going to happen, and of course it's not. It's absolutely not. And two of these folks have been putting out that we are just, it's a bunch of false information, yet they spend tens of millions of dollars.
So, Nicole, the previous two classified briefings on this topic, we talked to lawmakers after they came out. Again, they didn't share details, but for the first one, they were largely disappointed. The second one, they said they actually felt satisfied with some of the information that they got. So we're going to see what happens this time when they come out. I can tell you separately but related, these members are also talking about a potential field hearing. A second one. We remember that first major hearing that happened back in July. It was unprecedented on this topic. They're pushing for a second one, and I am told that they may have news on when a field hearing may be in the coming days. So we are keeping our ears on that and our eyes definitely on whenever they have news on
that. Oh, yeah,
topic.
a lot of people would like to see that happen. Okay, Joe, thank you. Thank you.
So, yeah, like I say, News Nation have got their fingers on the pulse when it comes to this kind of thing. But, so that was kind of the build-up to this meeting. Now, since this meeting, there have been a lot of things that have really kind of come forwards. And some was great, some not so great. But it's just one of those things where it's a bit of a toss-up at the minute between, like, being classified and what is allowed to be said. I'm sure as we kind of progress through the next coming weeks, there'll be a bit more kind of teased out about it. But a long story short, basically, there has been a few responses to this meeting from, obviously, Representative Tim Burchett, Anna Paulina Luna, and Robert Garcia in particular, alongside Christopher Mellon. Now, Christopher Mellon, will start with his response first over on Twitter. So Christopher Mellon's response to the hearing by the US House Armed Service Committee today and the lack of answers by the Air Force on Langley AFB drone incursion that caused the base to move fighter jets to other bases as they were unable to identify or engage with these unmanned vehicles. That was one of the things that apparently came up. Yes, one of the growing string of similar incidents, in which we have been unable to identify or engage these unmanned vehicles. They are not even trying to conceal their presence, yet operate with impunity for weeks in restricted airspace, to the point where fighters were relocated to Langley and from Langley to other bases. If the Air Force can't control the air over Langley, how can they control the air over Washington? I encourage people to go to the Warzone website and to search the terms drones and Guam, or drones and Colorado, or drones and Palo Verde, or drones and FAA, or Arizona, or Navy, and see what you find. Most people think drones are just problem for countries overseas, but not true. We have a big problem here in the US and still have no clue where these things are coming from or why. So that was, quite a scolding response, obviously, about not being able to get the information that they were kind of hoping for. And here's kind of a clip of that of that kind of conversation. Now, this is from this isn't from that classified meeting. This is from another meeting that also took place yesterday at the time of recording. So I wanted to kind of throw this one in there as well, because it's all relevant. It all goes hand in hand with each other. So take a little listen to this.
You, Mr. Whitman.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank our witnesses for joining us today. Secretary Kent, I'd like to begin with you. The U.S. Air Force base budget and then the UCOM unfunded requirements list both call for additional counter small UAS capability at U.S. Air Force installations. As I see things unfolding, we see counter small UAS and really loitering munitions not having much distinction. They are becoming the same thing. We saw recently a very disturbing trend at Langley Air Force Base, where because of a large number of UASs that were in that airspace, Langley had to close down just to make sure that we were able to defend the operations that were going on there. As I watch how missions are developing, you see the Army Missile Defense mission, you see the Air Force Air Base Air Defense mission, and it looks like to me that there's a lot of commonalities there. Can you give me an idea about how do you look at those different requirements, and who's responsible for what mission? Are there clear lines of distinction there? And do you think that based upon where we are today, are our Air Force bases adequately protected?
We have a wide range of threats to our air bases. They vary by theater quite a bit. Different in the Middle East or in Europe or in the Pacific. In the Pacific in particular, what China's been acquiring is a variety of missiles, precision missiles, ballistic and cruise and hypersonic, designed to attack our air bases. And that's the threat that really drives us more than anything else right now. In the Middle East and to some extent in Europe, we're faced with small UAVs more. We have to deal with all of these. The way the department is approaching this is that the Army is generally the lead for research and development on small UAV problem, and we're participating in that. We contribute to that and are full-fledged members. And we are funding some improvements to our air bases for security of that. I was just at several of our Middle East air bases where we have systems deployed today because of that threat. As you go up the chain a little bit in the threat and start worrying about cruise and ballistic missiles, then systems like Patriot come into play. What we need, and there's a large study that's been going on for well over a year now, led by the Army that we're participating in, to try to come to an optimal solution for air-based defense against a whole range of threats. What we need in particular is a highly cost-effective way to engage those cruise and ballistic missiles and those hypersonics. Yeah. And there's some promising technologies in development which we think have potential to do that. We will have to make some decisions in the department about force structure and what our priorities are to acquire those. But I think it's an important part of air-based resilience that we have to address. Our whole concept of operation in the Pacific is called agile combat employment, which assumes that we don't stay on a single base to absorb missile attacks. We move around to different bases and make it harder for the other guy. But you still need defenses, and you need defenses that can be where you're going to be to be effective. All our wargaming says that's a necessity. So we're not where we need to be yet, but we're on the path, hopefully, to get there.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
So, long story short, that was a load of words and not much substance. It was a nothing burger. There was nothing there. Literally, like, what did he even say that had substance or value to it? Absolutely nothing. Clearly, no idea what's going on. Like, he can't control it, and he's trying to minimize the fallout and not make it look like they don't know what they're doing without actually knowing what they're doing. Anyway, to jump back to this confidential meeting that was taken place at the Hill, basically, Tim Burchett was very vocal over on his Twitter page and his just out in general, about how disappointed he truly was by the UFO briefing, and not so much towards the contents of it, but more towards the people that were hosting and chairing this meeting. Take a little listen to this on News Nation once again, where it talks about Tim Burchett witnessing a lot of arrogance. Let's have a little listen.
Back here to the Hill on News Nation. Today, lawmakers on Capitol Hill received a classified briefing on unidentified anomalous phenomena, commonly known as UFOs. It comes as lawmakers continue to push for transparency from the Pentagon. Joining us now is Republican Congressman Tim Burr. He attended that classified briefing. Congressman, great to see you and talk with you as always. Thanks for being back with us here on the Hill. So it's classified. I know you can't get into details. We get that. We understand it. But after being in that briefing and now you're out of it, were you satisfied with what you heard?
No, it's always compartmentalized.
No. Just straight to the point. No.
We can't get to certain things. It's, you know, I don't really think of these people are lying. I think there's a lot of arrogance that kind of whirls around this so-called intelligence community. But what they do is they've compartmentalized it so that each department, they can only answer your question up to a certain point, and you can't get everybody in the skiff at the same time to answer the question. So no, I mean, I was almost falling asleep in the meeting. It was just so mundane and boring, and a lot of the things they told us, you know, they explained some things that went on that were just like, okay, well then why are you having to tell us this in the skiff? Why can't you tell the American public that? And you know, it's just...
That is a brilliant question. Like, if it's so mundane and it's so boring and it's so wishy-washy, why does it have to be done in private? Why does it have to be confidential? Why does it have to be behind closed doors? Why can't it just be broadcast? Why can't it be told to everyone? He's asking all the right questions. People just don't want to hear it sometimes.
So do you think all your...
Complete disinformation. Go ahead.
Do you think your time spent on this, because there's a lot of time that you and the rest of the UAP caucus have spent to try to get answers, and every time I speak with you, Congressman, when you go to these classified briefings, you walk out and you're disappointed. And I wonder if you think that this is a waste of time. Do you feel that there's a cover-up going on, something in between? What is it?
Yeah, I think there's a cover-up. You know, there's tens of millions of dollars that we spend investigating these things. We've had departments tell us that they have recovery units, but yet they won't release full reports. Everything's covered up. You know, your reports look like somebody shot it with a 12-gauge shotgun. So of course I think there's a cover-up. What it is, I don't know. You know, I've said many times, it's not about the little green men or the flying saucers. It's about what the heck are they spending all this dadgum money on, and why won't they release it? That's the real questions that need to be asked. Until we have a commander-in-chief that'll release them, I don't think we're going to get them.
Why do you think there's a cover-up?
And that is, just before we get onto that part, again, another brilliant point made. Like, there are tens of millions of dollars getting pumped into these programs, right? That apparently don't exist. Well, the money's going somewhere. So where is it going? People want to know what their taxes are being spent on, right? Like, everybody wants to know. They don't want to know, like, they don't want to pay their taxes and then not see, like, the idea of you paying taxes is that you, in the long run, get something in return, you know, whether it be a better economy system, whether it be better transport, I don't know, you know, better healthcare system. I just thinking from the UK in particular, but that's what people want to know. Like, you want to know what your money's being spent on, but these people are not willing to share it. They want to have these private and confidential meetings and spend all this money, and it just be like, you shouldn't be asking those questions.
A lot of reasons. If say it is extraterrestrial, there's a lot of money to be made from somebody else's technology that you don't have to spend any money to get. And there might be the fact they don't understand what's going on, and there might be the fact that it's just plain arrogance, and they don't think we deserve it. You know, I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with high-ranking officials that have told me that you know, America really can't handle this stuff, Congressman. We really just need to be real careful about it. And it's not their position to tell me who or what I can handle. You know, we're Americans. We ought to be able to take it. Give it to us. I'm tired of it.
Real quick, Congressman, what's next?
Well, hopefully we'll have some hearings about this. They're just trying to run the clock out, which we said they were going to do. And we'll keep, as long as some of us are still in Congress, they don't run us off, we'll continue trying to get the answers. And look, I just want transparency. That's what you and the media ought to ask for. That's what the taxpayers should ask for. Just give me some dadgum transparency.
Congressman Tim Burr, UAP Caucus, we got to leave it there. Thank you.
I love it. I love the way that he talks. I love the way that he describes things. I love how just down the line he is. There is no like beating around the bush with it. It's just, we want some dadgum answers. And the fact that he always uses dadgum is just, just gets me going, man. It gets me going. Gets me excited. Anyway, yeah, so obviously Tim Burchett was not the only representative there from this kind of, I suppose, trio of spearheading individuals in Congress who are really trying to push for the truth. Another person is Anna Paulina Luna, who obviously we've covered quite a bit on this channel so far, but she, again, very vocal about what she wants and with regards to these meetings. And you know, we haven't got footage, but we've got an audio clip about what she said, and here it is for you right now.
It's become evident that there's a whole lot of people that don't want us to continue down this path, and so what I will say is that unfortunately things have kind of got a little derailed with everything happening in the House currently, but we're still working in a bipartisan fashion to move forward, and so with this gift meeting, hopefully we'll get some more answers and maybe hopefully announce our first field hearing. It's become evident that now, there's a whole lot.
Field hearings are a thing that are becoming very topical. There's a lot of Congress people who want these field hearings and want more of this. And another person who has really pushed for more public hearings about UAPs and UFOs and things like this was Representative Robert Garcia, who, again, part of that trio, is really pushing for it. He wants it. He wants this public hearing to be made, and not for them to be behind closed doors, and the taxpayers deserve to know, and things like this. So let's have a little listen.
First is you had your question answered, but did it seem generally like from the lawmakers in the room they were satisfied with some of what they were hearing?
Well, no, just because I got my question answered doesn't mean I'm totally satisfied.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that I just want to have more public hearings. I think public hearings are really important. Classified briefings are great. We've asked for more public hearings. It's not a decision that those of us in the minority can make. This is, I mean, quite frankly, on the majority. It's on the Republicans to agree to more hearings. We've already made that request on oversight, so we're going to continue to make that request.
Can you tell me like where you think you are with that?
I mean, I've made that request in letters, in person. I'm not sure how many more times we can request it, so it's really their decision. But certainly I'd like to see more public hearings.
So
you can't argue with that. You know, public hearings, just let the people be part of these hearings, let them be the judges of what's being said. Obviously, there is not a lot of substance to this whole situation right now, but it's interesting to see the people coming forward to talk about it, and I think in the coming weeks there will be information teased out. Either, like, you know, it might be through Ross Coulthart having these people on his new podcast, which is on News Nation, or it might be through these people's Twitter pages where, you know, just little nuggets of information is just kind of teased and dropped out there, and, you know, not fully, like, dumping all the information from these meetings on us, but just little things that they've heard. Hopefully, we can all hope. But what do you make of this whole situation? Of course, get down in the comments, let us know. Do you want these public hearings as well? I mean, I do. I'd love to see them. I want them in the UK. We've never had one of those in the UK. And I think based off, we should follow the US's kind of, you know, path on this and really kind of push for it over in other countries, especially in, you know, South America as well, because they've got some amazing things that I reckon that they've got behind closed doors. But while you're down there talking about it, be sure to jump together at that like button if you have not already. Be sure to subscribe and tickle my little bell so you get notified whenever we upload to this channel. And until next time, guys, I hope that you have enjoyed this video. I cannot wait to read your comments, and I'll spook to you later. Peace.